Alright guys, so we are back and we're going to go into a little bit more actually into the flexbox this time, but we're going to use the grid. Okay, so I figured that this will be a perfect time to use this since we're going to be using this section. I'm not going to use this section in this tutorial, so this part right here, this is just something I did for myself, and there's nothing very particular to this part right here that can be covered on this section here that I'm going to do. So we're going to do that part instead and then just move along from there. That's going to be enough for us to go over the grid concept on how to use the grid component from Material UI to make use of the power that the Flexbox has for you. So alright, so without further ado, let's move on. Plus we kind of do need to have that section now that I come to think of it, because we had to have something that goes to it when you click here, and then one when you click here, which we will have, and then eventually the context. So yeah, so we do kind of need that. So the first thing we're going to need is going to be an about section. So this card right here is your main, basically your top div right here. So what I like to do is I like to break my stuff in sections. So I'm gonna create a section here, and this right here is not going to have any impact on your design unless you have already a section assigned, or like some kind of CSS assigned for sections that gives it margins and things like that. You shouldn't, but I'll test it anyway. So I create a section here and make sure that nothing changes in the UI. Nothing is changing. There's no extra paddings or anything like that. It's great. That's exactly what I wanted. So this helps me know when a section starts and the next section, when a section ends and the next section starts. So on the next section, it just keeps my code organized a little better. So I'm going to have another section here, and this one is going to be for my about. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and create more sections. Now, mind you, and another one. Alright, so these are my 4 sections that I'm going to create. This one is going to be, I'm going to create a comment, I'm going to create a comment here, and it's going to be my about. Make sure I space that in there. I'm going to add that up here as well, and this is my banner, hero banner. Here we go. And then my next section here is going to be projects. So I'm just organizing my screens a little better. And then here is going to be my contact. There you go. Now, in a real world scenario, and we're going to do these possibly later on in the course, you should have each of these sections as components. Okay, just like your footer and your header as components. You don't want to have all of this code stuck into the same page. Okay, but we'll create that in a second. Let's just move on with this for right now and to the about page. Alright, so first thing that we're going to do is we're going to add a container inside this underneath this banner here. So we're going to do this with the paper, just because paper is the best way to add to me is the best way to add containers where you can start developing inside. It's no different than adding a regular div, so it just gives it a little bit more flexibility as far as elevations and things like that. So I'm going to use my paper component, and I'm going to come down here to the about page, and then I'm going to open up with my paper. Make sure that it opens and closes. And first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that it is square. I don't want the rounded corners. Okay. And that's all that I have in there for that. And now inside my paper, I'm going to have basically 3 sections. Okay. First thing I'm going to have is this section up here, which is the heading of the section. which is basically just a heading about me. And then I'm going to have two sections taking each other, one like maybe a quarter, not a quarter, but a third, maybe a third of the space here, and then 2/3 of the space reserved to the other sides. Then when it goes down into smaller screen, it's going to go into half and half, and then eventually it goes into full screen each size, so maintain the responsiveness behavior of this. And we're going to do this with the grid this time. We could do it by just hacking the CSS and using the display flexbox, just like we did here with this code here, but that does require a little bit more coding, a little bit more writing. So since we already have the grid and it's available to us, why not make use of it? So the first thing, we're going to introduce a couple of items here. First, we're going to introduce a typography, because we're going to make use of the typography instead of doing what we did here with the H1 and the H2. We're going to actually bring the typography element into this as well. And we're going to bring the grid into it. So these are two new items that we're going to be using. So the first thing that we're going to do is, and the container. I'm sorry. So the reason why I'm bringing the container is because you see this extra padding here on the sides. That's being brought in by the container itself. Instead of going to the edge like most headers would do, or this banner comes all the way out, when you put a container, it adds a little bit of a padding, or a lot of padding on the sides of the window. And I think that's a great thing to have. You don't want that circle image to be right smack in the corner here, and then the content to go all the way to the very edge. You want to have a little bit of padding on each side. Most websites you're going to see, when you see content, it's going to be centered in an area about like that big. Okay, so we're going to go through that. So first thing, so we're going to need to bring the container for that as well. Container. Alright, so now we have what we need, and we're going to start building this. So inside the paper, first thing we need to bring the container first. The reason why we need the container first is because we want to define that center area first before we start putting stuff in it. Okay, so now that we have that container, we want to give that container a max width. Alright, there are different max width properties, and you can go see this in here and then find a container, and you can see that the max width right here has different sizes for you. So just mess around until you find one that you like best. I like large, actually, so I'm gonna use that one. So I'm going to give that max width to it. And now inside, I'm going to start adding my first thing, which is going to be my About Me heading on the top. And that's going to come from the typography component. So the typography has a property called variant, which means which kind of H1 tag, or there you go actually, which one of these you want to use for this. In this case, I want to use the H3. So I'm going to add H3 to it. That means that this typography is going to look like an H3. And if I need a heading, I'll add it. But for right now, let's just leave it like that. If I need, not a heading, if I need a class name, I'll add it. For right now, I don't know if I'm going to need it or not. So we'll keep it that way. And it's going to say About Me. And that's about it. So before we go any further, we're just going to save this and test it out and see how it looks. And that's great. That's not too bad. Okay. Maybe, I don't know if that's the font you want or not. Maybe you wanted it to be a little bit, more like mine. It's Oswald, and a little bit, So let's do that actually. Let's make it Oswald. So we're going to use a class name and give it a class, and we're going to call it section heading. And I swear, if I do this one more time, there we go. Section heading, and forgot to add classes. There you go. Classes section heading. So now I got to come here to my classes and add my section heading in here. And I want my font family to be Oswald. and I should have Oswald already installed in my theme file. Okay, let's see. Grid is defined but never used. That shouldn't be a problem. Oh, spell check issue. Font family. Sorry about that. There we go. Font family works. So it's about family. I mean about me. Sorry. All right. Another thing that I want. I don't know why my IDE is doing this spacing weird things. All right. So another thing that I want to do is I want to center that a little bit. Okay. I don't want it to be there. So I could do that since this is the only item that I'm doing that to, that I'm not enclosing that into a grid. I can just probably do that inside the actual heading here and then do a text align and give that a center. So I'm just gonna do that for this, and that should center it. Another thing that I want to do is maybe give it a little bit of padding because it's too close to the top. So padding, and I want to give that a maybe. I'm gonna actually give it a different kind of padding on different side, directions. So for the top, I want to go 20%, 20 pixels. I want to go 0 on one side, on the right side, and I want to go 30 pixels on the bottom and 0 on the left. So it goes like a clock, starting from top, right, bottom, left. There you go. I like that better. All right, so now the next thing that we're going to do is, I'm just going to keep this right next to yours. All right, next thing we're going to do is we're going to add these two images side to side, but we need to have a container to put this image here and a container to put this here. So now is where the grid starts to come in. So we're coming down here, and underneath the typography, that's where we're going to put the grid. So we start with the grid. And the grid is going to be a container. Then inside the grid container, we're going to need two grid items. Grid item. And I'm just going to copy that and put it there. So here we got now a grid container that has two children items in it. Now my grid container is going to have a spacing. I'm going to give the spacing to these guys, and it's going to be, like I said earlier, it's the most common spacing that you're going to find out there. It's going to be 3. Anything else or anything more, maybe 2 is fine, maybe 4 is okay, but anything else is kind of weird. If you don't want it to be spaced at all, you can put a 0 and they'll be stuck to each other. Sometimes that makes sense for some things. And now in here in the grid item is going to have sizes. So this is where we get to define how big you want these two containers here to be. I think in this case we want this container to be about 1/3 for in the large screens. So we're gonna go with, for large screens, yeah, so for the small screens, let's start from the bottom. For the small screens, it's going to take full width. For the laptop, or not the laptop, but the iPads and stuff, no, the tablets, yeah. For tablets, we want it to take half the screen, so that's 6, 12 divided by 2. And then for anything medium and up, which is going to be laptops and stuff, then that's when I want it to be a 3. So this one, that's for that item. And then for this item, it's going to be similar. This is going to be where the text is. This is where the picture is going to be. So let's just add that in there. This is where the picture is going to be, and this is where the text is going to be. So the picture, I want it to be full size on the mobile tablet, half, and then laptops and up, about 1/3. And then for here, it's going to be the same thing. It's going to be stacked right up under it, so it's going to be full width. and the tablet is going to be right next to it, taking the other half of the screen. But this one, obviously, it's not going to take a quarter because this one is only taking a quarter. This is going to take the rest. So it's going to be 6, 9. 9 plus 3 is 12. It all adds up to 12. Okay, 6 and 6 is 12, and then 3 and 9 is 12. You don't add these up to 12 because they're going to take an entire width. All right, so now that we have that, we can go ahead and save this, and then we can come test it. And here we go. Now you can see, if you look at it, if you inspect it, you can see that this is taking that much space and this is taking that much space. If we go down to a smaller screen right here, now you can see this is taking half and this is taking the other half. And then if we go even smaller to the smartphone, now you can see that this is taking the entire width and this is taking the entire width. So that's how the responsiveness works on this, on these cases. So now that we know that this is working, we're gonna go ahead and add the stuff that we need to add to it. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna bring in the avatar, because we're going to add the image. And the best way to actually copy all this is if we go to the header, because we're going to use the same one from the header. So find the component and the header. There we go. We already did this before. So we got to find the header. There we go. We added to the site metadata. So this is going to really, it's really not going to help that much, is it? But we know we do need the SRC. So let's just bring the avatar in here first. So we're gonna do the avatar, and for the avatar we're gonna have SRC. We're gonna have it closing, self close, and then we're gonna go to the config file so we can retrieve this image. I don't want to use a site metadata for this. I'm gonna use actually the real spacing, whatever, path, the real path. All right, and save that, and then come check it out, and here I am. Very tiny, very tiny. Reason why is because we need to add some width and stuff to it. So if we go back to the header and we look at what we did here, we have a class name here with large. So let's copy that class name and come here and let's make it huge. Let's call it huge. And then here we're gonna also add the huge class. And then from the header we did what to that? We did this, right? We're gonna come over here and we're gonna do that as well. But this time, obviously it's not gonna be 7. It's gonna be a lot more than that. What do we want to do? I really don't know how much you should, really. I think we should just probably try it out and and give it as many as we, as we think it's going to be until it works. So let's try like 46. That's probably going to be huge. What did I break? Oh, the theme. Okay, so maybe we don't need the spacing on this. All right, so let's just do it. Let's do it like this. 100%. And 100%. Let's do that instead. There we go. That's better. So now it has 100% of the width of the container that is holding it. Okay. The reason why it looks like that is, that size specific is because it's holding a 3% of the screen. So it's going to always be 100% of that container. You see the container grows and gets smaller, and so does the page. I mean, not that the page, the image. So does the image. Now my section here has no padding in the bottom, so I want to add a little bit of padding to this section. But I'm going to do that. I'm not going to do it to the entire section. I'm going to do it to the paper, actually, as a matter of fact. So I'm going to add it in inline, and I'm going to call this, it's got to be on double brackets, and it's going to be padding. Now I did add some padding to my heading over here, so I'm going to keep that. So I'm just going to do the bottom one then. Padding bottom 20, and that should give it a little bit of padding down here. Yep, that's about right. Maybe 30. A little more. There we go. Alright, I like that better. And now for the text. I'm not gonna get too specific with this, obviously, so I'm gonna go to random text generator, random text generator, and click on that. Let's see, it's pretty easy to find, you guys. And then you just grab whatever. So I'm gonna grab like maybe 3 of these, and I'm gonna come over here to my text. Now it depends on what you want to do here. You can make it, you know, like I just did with the avatar or whatever, you know, class names and all that stuff, you know, and do the same thing, put a typography in there, or you can just simply just, you know, put a p tag and then put the text in there. I don't know why that capitalized, shouldn't. You can also just paste the text in there just like that. It would also take it, but I think that's not pretty cool. It's better to have control on. I got my caps on. There we go. It's better to have control on what you're actually putting in there. So I rather use components and actual HTML if I have to, but not just the text by itself. So in here I'm going to put my variant of which kind of typography I want to use, and in this case it's going to be my regular typography, which is body 1. That's my regular paragraph. And if I do need a color, I'll add it, but I don't know yet if I'm going to or not, if I'm going to even need it. And then in there now I can go ahead and post, and I don't think I'll need, but I'll make sure in a minute. I don't know if I'll need the break lines in here, or if these break lines are going to be automatically detected. So we're gonna figure that out. Alright, and they didn't come automatically detected, so we have to add them, and I don't remember where. So let's just add them anywhere. So to get those break lines, so you put BR like that. You put 1, that gives you 1 line, but since this is a paragraph break, it's got to be 2 of them. I'm just gonna copy these 2 right here and add them maybe here, and save that again, and there you go. Now we have three paragraphs. That looks a lot cleaner, it looks a lot better, and there you go. You have your section already done. So the rest of the stuff that you see there, like this border here and this border here, that's just cosmetic. I'm not going to waste my time on that or yours, because eventually you're going to style this any way you want to, and to fit your own, you know, your own flavor. So I'm not going to really go into that. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean waste my time. I mean waste your time, actually. You can always you know, find this how to do this stuff in CSS, or you know, or just kind of like because even if I taught you how to do this may not be your style. This may not be what you really want to do anyway. So so it's kind of pointless. We're gonna focus on the important things here, and the next one is going to be to bring it come up here and actually start bringing in some of the projects that I've already served for you from here. Okay. All right. I'll see you guys in the next one.